follow, and share our History Uncovered channel. In the previous part, we saw 3 very interesting examples of how animals from millions of years ago get preserved in tree resin, in layers of rocks, and in mountains. Then we raised the question, this proves that fossils exist, but how does the existence of fossils prove that life, meaning all living beings, including humans, has evolved? How are fossils evidence of evolution? The second question was, how do we know how old a fossil, a rock, or a sedimentary layer is? Friends, first let us look at the question of how fossils serve as evidence of evolution, and then we will move to the second question. Fellows, you must have seen layered rocks in mountainous regions, known as sedimentary rocks. There is a simple principle. The lowest layer is the oldest, the layer above it is newer, and as we move upward, each layer becomes progressively younger. The topmost layer is the youngest, the very layer on which we are standing today. Now, if we examine these layers from bottom to top and observe which fossils are found in which layer, we can understand which organisms existed at what time. According to current scientific research, about 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was formed from the accumulation of gases. Over billions of years, layer upon layer of sedimentary rocks formed. In the lowest layers, which are about 2.5 billion years old, we do not find clear evidence of life. However, we do find traces of gases like carbon dioxide, suggesting that conditions suitable for life were developing. Above these layers, we begin to see the earliest signs of simple life, such as cyanobacteria. These were the simplest forms of life, single-celled organisms so small that they cannot be seen with the naked eye. In the layers above, we find evidence of multicellular life for the first time. These organisms had cells with a nucleus and a surrounding membrane, and they could perform photosynthesis, producing energy from sunlight, much like modern plants. From this point, a major revolution in life begins, and in the following periods, we start to see increasingly complex life forms appearing step by step. In this era, organisms with shells, such as trilobites, become common. Later, fish-like creatures also appear, meaning vertebrates are now present in the oceans. Then, suddenly, there comes a stage where the organisms found in lower layers no longer appear in the upper layers. It seems as if a mass extinction occurred, in which about 70% of life disappeared. After this, a new era begins, in which we start to find fossils of reptiles. During this time, dinosaurs dominate the Earth, and all dinosaur fossils belong to this era. Because of the dominance of dinosaurs, other life forms do not get the chance to grow large. Mammals and other creatures remain small in size. Then another major extinction event occurs, after which dinosaurs and most large animals disappear. It is believed that a massive meteor struck the Earth, causing this destruction. After this, the modern era begins, in which mammals and birds rapidly evolve. Since dinosaurs were gone, there was an abundance of food, allowing mammals to grow larger, while birds gradually lost their teeth and developed beaks. From layers dating back about 40 million years, we find fossils of animals that we can almost recognize today, such as early primates and whales. From layers about 7 million years old, we begin to find fossils of creatures that walked on 2 legs. These include primates whose front limbs were evolving into hands and arms. From layers about 2.6 million years old, we find clear evidence of an ice age when most of the Earth was covered in ice. During this time, large mammals such as mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and other giant animals existed. The earliest remains of the human species are also found from this period. Then, from layers about 11,000 years old, we learn that the Ice Age had ended and the Earth began to warm again. After this, humans spread across the world. The topmost layer is the one on which we are standing today. So, friends, this is the record of life preserved in rocks. When we observe these layers and the fossils within them, it becomes clear that life evolved gradually from simple forms to more complex ones. This is because we do not find complex life in the oldest layers, nor do we find birds or humans in very ancient times. If evolution were to be proven wrong, we would need to find complex organisms or human remains in the oldest layers, but that is not the case. This serves as evidence that life developed gradually through the process of evolution into its present form. Then the story of life on Earth would have to be rewritten. But friends, this has never happened to this day, as the evidence that specific fossils are found in specific rock layers belonging to specific time periods is so strong and so well established that geologists often determine the age of rocks primarily by the types of fossils found in them. Sometimes, due to earthquakes or geological activity, lower layers can be pushed upward. You may have seen straight sedimentary layers, but you must also have seen tilted or distorted layers formed due to geological changes. In such cases, to determine whether a layer on top is actually younger or has been pushed up from below, scientists rely on the fossils within it. If dinosaur fossils, bones, or footprints are found, it is understood that the rock layer is about 60 to 250 million years old. If trilobite fossils are found, geologists recognize that the rocks belong to the Paleozoic era and approximately 450 to 500 million years old. So, curious fellows, this answers the question of why rocks and fossils are evidence of evolution. Now comes the second important question. Apart from sequence, what method tells us how old a rock or fossil is? Because rock structure only tells us which layer is older or younger, but how do we determine the actual age? Friends, there isn't just one method. There are several scientific and logical approaches used to determine the age of fossils and the rocks in which they are found. The most well-known method is radiometric dating. It is complex, but let's explain it simply. Everything is made up of atoms of elements. You are familiar with the periodic table, from hydrogen and helium to more complex elements. Although there are 118 elements in the periodic table, each element can exist in different forms called isotopes. Let's take uranium as an example. Uranium exists in three common forms: uranium-234, uranium-235, and uranium-238. These are called isotopes. The difference between them lies in their mass, which depends on the number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. These isotopes are unstable because their internal structure is not balanced. To become stable, they gradually transform into other elements over time. The time it takes for this transformation is known and very precise. For example, uranium-235 is unstable and takes about 740 million years for half of it to decay into lead-207 and become stable. Similarly, potassium-40 takes about 1.26 billion years to partially convert into argon-40. Another example is aluminum-26, which takes about 750,000 years to partially convert into magnesium-26. The time it takes for half of an isotope to decay is called its half-life. After that, half of the remaining amount decays again, and so on. This process follows a predictable pattern. Now, how is this knowledge used? Suppose a fossil is discovered in a rock layer. Scientists take a sample from the layer below it and analyze the isotopes present in it. They determine how much of the isotope has decayed. For example, if uranium-235 in that layer has decayed halfway into lead-207, then that layer is approximately 740 million years old. Next, they take a sample from the layer above the fossil and perform the same analysis. Suppose they find aluminum-26 that has decayed halfway into magnesium-26. This indicates an age of about 750,000 years. This allows scientists to determine that the fossil lies somewhere between the ages of the upper and lower layers. After narrowing down the time range, further analysis of isotopes and environmental elements within the fossil helps estimate its age more precisely. This entire process is called radiometric dating because unstable isotopes are radioactive and emit energy as they decay. So friends, if evolution is real, we should never find bird fossils in the oldest rock layers because birds had not evolved at that time. If radiometric dating ever showed that complex organisms existed in the oldest layers, the theory of evolution would collapse instantly. But this has never happened. These are the modern scientific methods through which we determine the age of rocks and fossils. That is why, even though some fossils are missing, the orderly sequence of fossils, from simple life forms to gradually more complex ones, strongly supports the idea that life evolved over time. Life did not appear all at once in its complete form. This is the third video in the evolution series. More parts are coming. But if you look again at the fossil sequence in rock layers, two interesting questions arise. First, how did life suddenly move from the sea onto land? Where are the intermediate fossils? Today we do not see fish walking on land. If evolution is true, we should find fossils from that transitional period showing features of both aquatic and land animals. Second, another interesting point, we do not find any bird fossils from about 200 million years ago. But suddenly, after about 65 million years ago, birds begin to appear, including birds with teeth. Why is that? If evolution is correct, we should find fossils from the intermediate period that show characteristics of both reptiles and birds. These are very important questions. How did large, powerful dinosaurs develop wings and eventually become birds? We will discuss these questions in upcoming videos, including missing links, the origin of life, and how the first cell formed. Be sure to watch the next parts. Earlier, we made 2 videos in this evolution series explaining that evolution is more than just a theory, and addressing the question of whether humans evolved from apes. You can watch those videos in this playlist. Also explore the story of the entire universe and see how a special device can take you 13 billion years back in time. Dear friends, a lot of hard work is done by our team to bring the history for you briefly. So please support us by following our channel, pressing on bell icon, sharing with your friends, and helping us by sharing your views on comment section. Thanks.